Jess was talking about how in her healing process, she has lived in a constant, with a constant fire, right? A constant drive. But that drive was always driven by the fear of what's going to come, what she's trying to ward off, the pending doom, all that stuff. And then she described now how she lives in peace, but still has significant drive. The fire's still there. And what I said to her was, so what you've really done is drop two words from your life, and the two words you dropped from your life was or else.
The or else phrase kind of embodies it. Catastrophic, I wasn't sure what she meant when she said that to me. I always viewed it as, and I was always kind of aware that I was doing this, was like an all or nothing thing. Like if I close one door, it's closed forever. If I walk through another door, I'm not allowed to walk through any other doors. And it was a different flavor. It was less of a doom, more for me, I think, of an obligation that, like a mixture of an obligation and a fear. Like, if I have to walk through this one, I'm not allowed to walk through other ones, which produced a fear because I was living in all or nothing. And I was like, well, shit, if I'm living in that space, I'm always scared I'm going to make the wrong choice. And what I've learned recently is like, there really is no wrong choice, but how do you explain that to someone?
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Capital T Truth podcast with Larry, and we have Steve Nagib here for our traditional Q&A podcast after we have a big episode. Our last episode was with Jessica Brandon, and we got to talk all about the fight and what problems that causes in her life, both from a combat perspective with me as a SEAL, and then Jess as a single mother, as a very young mother, and a very successful entrepreneur. So looking forward to seeing what questions you all came up with. Steve's going to bring up to me on this. And as usual, if you want to be part of the episode, part of the podcast, you can go to reach us two places to ask questions. One is going to be truepathmastery.com/podcast. And on that website, you'll be able to register and ask questions, even apply to become a guest on the podcast, as well as podcast@truepathmastery.com. That email, you just send us an email. Look forward to seeing what questions you got for me today, Steve.
I'm stoked to be here, Larry. Obviously, I love spending time with you, and this episode feels particularly special. I know Jess had mentioned some of the one-on-one coaching her and I have gone through over the course of the last few years. And one, it made me feel special, of course, but two, listening to her not only transition her life, but grow and evolve over the last 2 years that she's been in our program felt very special. And I'm excited for this episode because now I get to see how her healing and her evolution is sparking the same type of thoughts and curiosity inside of our listeners. So yeah. I'm stoked. Let's jump right into it. This is Sadie. Sadie, I don't know where Sadie's from, but I jumped through the questions a little bit. This is a good one from Sadie. She said, quote, you asked, so I guess this is to you, Larry. You asked Jessica, or you said Jessica dropped the phrase or else from her life. That kept the fire and the drive, but removed the impending doom. This is the cleanest thing I've ever heard on this podcast, but my question is how? My brain adds that or else phrase to everything. Is there actually a practice for getting rid of it?
Well, I mean, that's a big... It's funny because we often get these questions of like, yeah, you got to do the work, right? The work's going to take a while, right? And it's the same, at least for us, the same process. The or else. So what she's referred to, Steve, is Jess was talking about how in her healing process, she has lived in a constant, with a constant fire, right? A constant drive. But that drive was always driven by the fear of what's going to come, what she's trying to ward off, the pending doom, all that stuff. And then she described now how she lives in peace, but still has significant drive. The fire's still there. And what I said to her was, "Oh, so what you've really done is drop two words from your life, and the two words you dropped from your life was or else, right?" And that is indicative of someone who is driven by trying to avoid some future problem, right? And I think, as a lot of people know, humans are driven more to avoid pain than they are to towards pleasure. And so this, I think, is a chronic thing in many of our lives, of that concept of living in impending doom. I don't know, is that something that you live? This is kind of a silly question, but for our listeners that don't have the history that we have together, does that ever show up for you?
Absolutely. Between you, my girlfriend, and a few other people in my life lately, that's why I think
Chat
I
GPT,
maybe,
right? Yeah.
yeah, my subconscious definitely jumps. I was like, oh, this question sounds interesting for me. Let's read it out loud. It's interesting because the phrase that got reflected back to me by my girlfriend that I shared with you a few days ago, which is very timely for this episode, was catastrophic. And the or else phrase kind of embodies it. Catastrophic, I wasn't sure what she meant when she said that to me. I always viewed it as, and I was always kind of aware that I was doing this, was like an all or nothing thing. Like if I close one door, it's closed forever. If I walk through another door, I'm not allowed to walk through any other doors. And it was a different flavor. It was less of a doom, more for me, I think, of an obligation that like a mixture of an obligation and a fear. Like, oh, if I have to walk through this one, I'm not allowed to walk through other ones, which produced a fear because I was living in all or nothing. And I was like, well, shit, if I'm living in that space, I'm always scared I'm going to make the wrong choice. And what
Right.
I've learned recently is like, there really is no wrong choice, but how do you explain that to someone?
Yeah, and I think you're saying there, you're realizing there is no wrong choice when you live with the or else or the catastrophic thinking. Everything is a wrong choice, right? There is no right choice. Go through this door. Well, you made the wrong choice because you lost this opportunity. Don't go through this door, and then you didn't get that opportunity. Like, there's no way to get around it when you live into that thinking. Sadie's question, though, like what I think we're showing here is this is a common experience for humans of living in this fear of what's to come. And Sadie's question of, well, how do you do that? Like, I understand, yeah, everything in my life is or else. What do I do about it? And that's where, with Jess, we really talked about attacking at three levels: attacking it in the mind, attacking it in the heart, attacking it in the body. We talked about the mind being identifying where there are truths and untruths in this, right? Which I imagine your experience with the girlfriend was, she was bringing up to your conscious mind the fact that there are no doors closing. You aren't obligated to stay in the room that you walk into, all of those things, right? So what she's doing is that first step of helping you bring into your conscious reality truth versus untruth. And so that's, to me, that's always the first step, right? Is this true? Is it true? Is it capital T true, or am I making it up and it's lowercase t true? Or is it just straight untruth, right? Keeping me in stuck.
And
The
that's the
other,
mental you said, right?
yeah, the
That's the
mental
mental
side.
mind.
And on the
Okay.
heart, the emotional side, it's the same thing that we did in that episode with Jess. Was once we clarified the mental problem, I had her talk about and discuss the common emotional states that are produced when she lives in that untruth or that lowercase t truth. And so that's something we've talked about in many different episodes around allowing yourself to actually experience your emotions, do it from multiple lenses, right? From direct experience, standing outside of the window, looking in, standing across the street, and identifying how you actually, is this serving me or not, right? So to me, Sadie, that second step is going to be on the emotional front, right? First, experiencing emotion. Two, understanding what emotional states come together, and does this serve us or not. And then the third thing, the third column, is we were talking about with the body and with Jess, is that even if I get my mind clear, even if I get my emotional state understood, or the charge removed. When the body or the nervous system is still stuck in that adrenal response, that fight or flight, it doesn't really matter if our brain and our heart is straight. The body is creating that need to fight just neurochemically. And that's where understanding how to address that is a whole nother conversation, right? I've gone so far as have partnerships around supplementation that helps reduce or tune down the nervous system, but that might not be accessible to everyone. The suggestion that I would give that anyone could use around that third column is to have on hand a list of activities that calm your nervous system, or things that calm your nervous system. I did this with my youngest son, who's ADD, ADHD. And so we have a list of 10 items, 10 things that help, that are uh, things that he can do, or environments that he has that help reduce or relax that nervous system. And so that would be that third step. That's something anyone can do, is produce that list when you're not in response mode, when you're not in emergency mode, so you have it ahead of time. And then when those around you recognize that you may be running a bit hot, pull something off that list to reduce that charge.
Amazing. And I love my tools. So I'm writing these down as you're saying them. I want to repeat them back to you for the listener. I heard you say basically there's three bodies that we can train and practice inside of to help us essentially not live in this impending catastrophe or impending doom. Mental, physical, emotional. On the emotional body, you have your list. On your inside of your mental body, you're striving to live in capital T truth. What was the tool for the what I would call physical body?
Yeah, so uh, you we had it slightly off. So mental body is truth on truth, right?
Yep.
Capital T, lowercase t. Emotional body is experience the emotional state to reduce the charge, right? That's our house analogy. I forget which episode that was in. We covered that, but the concept of experiencing the emotion, understanding what emotional friends come with that emotional charge, and then identifying if this is serving us or not. So it's really a structure to sit in the emotion to remove the charge. And then for the physical body, that's where we have the list of things that allow us to calm our nervous system down. And those can vary. Like my the number one on my son's list was ice cream, right? Like eat ice cream. Second was play Switch. The third one was read a book, right? So fourth one was take a bunch of slow breaths, right? So that's the type of things on his list. Like for me, there's like two that stick out. One, oddly enough, is the same with him. Is for Christmas, I got a PlayStation and I have a racing game. And so that's one of the things I do when I'm completely running hot. I play the racing game because it gives me ability to focus on something else and end the loops. Another thing I have, it's from Hyper Ice, I believe, Nomadic, but they're these compression legs. So they're these air batters that compress my legs, and what the compressing and releasing of my legs, that feeling of compression, naturally reduces my nervous system. So just like my son, I have a list of things that I do, and when someone recognizes I'm running hot or I do, I'll do that list.
All I've learned a lot from you and from this episode already, but I think the biggest thing I just learned was at the top of my list is working out, and I'm gonna take a page out of your son's book. I'm moving ice cream to the top of my list.
Yeah,
I
and
work
working out, I'd be careful with that, because that can often stimulate the nervous system as opposed to bring it down. And so one I would put instead of working out would be stretching, right? Long held stretches, meaning 90 seconds or more in the same pose, especially when you make those poses passive. You do that for 10 or 15 minutes, the nervous system goes way down. Whereas going to the gym, lifting heavy, going for a run can help, but you got to be a little careful on those.
Yeah, no, all I heard in what you just said was I should be eating more ice cream. So I can I'm
That's
a good I'm good
You're
at doing
taking the
homework.
advice of a 9-year-old, so that might not be the best, but it is the top of his list.
Perfect. I want to ask a spin-off question. I have another one that I'll read in a minute, but Larry, how does this conversation play into the concept of living in the present or being in the present moment? Because it feels like the impending doom or the catastrophic thinking is rooted in living in the future. And I think there's a million books out there about living in the present moment. It's like every cliche I ever hear around in the self-help world is like, just be present. Easier said than done. How does that concept relate to this conversation?
Well, it is. This is where I get specific in linguistics and piss people off.
Yep.
Um, it is it is the easiest thing in the world to be present. Like, be not present. Try to be in a different moment. Go ahead, do it now. Let us watch. It's impossible. So it is structurally impossible to be in any moment than the present moment. So from that perspective, yes, being present is actually the only state we can be in. And that's why most of what they say, I think, it might not be bullshit, but it's like incomplete. So
Hmm.
what they're really saying is you should aim to experience presence, right? Because we can't be not present. That's just like someone like, I'm not myself. Like, okay, be someone else. Let me see that happen. Like, go ahead and do it. So within that perspective, uh, I think what we're really saying is experiencing presence. Because what's nuts is even when we live in the trauma of the past or the fear of the past or worry anxiety of the future, we're doing that in this present moment, right? And so to me, one of the things I always remember when it comes to worry and anxiety is what it is. Because as soon as you really define what it is, it becomes the stupidest thing in the world to do. So
And what is it?
when you think of worry and anxiety, what is it? Worry and anxiety comes from I don't want to experience a negative thing in the future, right? So what's something I worry about? I worry about uh, getting yelled at by my spouse when I get home for doing something. And why don't I want to get yelled at by my spouse when I get home for doing something wrong? Is because I don't like the way I feel, right? I don't like the negative feeling associated with that experience that is to happen in the future. So with worry anxiety, what do? I bring that negative experience into the present moment when there is no reason to experience it, right? And so the very thing that is driving my worry is the very thing I then bring into my life instantaneously based on my same statement that try and be anything but present. Like, you can't. So all you're doing is experiencing the very thing you don't want to experience in the future. You're just bringing it into today to experience. And so that's one of the things I remind myself over and over again when I live in fear, worry, or anxiety is, oh, this is dumb. I'm just going to make today miserable so that I can be sure to experience the misery today that I don't want to experience tomorrow.
Yeah. When you put it like that, it's kind of like the conversation you and I had recently of like, who would do that? Like, it sounds ridiculous. But it's something a lot of us are probably more practiced in than we would like to be. And I like how simply you put it because it is that simple. It's not easy because of our conditioning, but it is that simple, which is why
Yeah.
I wanted to bring it up. If the listeners haven't figured out by this point, I'm not just a random person reading questions. Larry and I coach this material together. So when I see an opportunity to plug in something I think might be valuable, I always try to do that. That was perfect, Larry. Let's move on to Chris. Chris sent a question in here that says Jessica was throwing up every morning for a year and a half. Then she gave her nervous system, and Chris writes this in quotations, permission to heal, and it stopped in days. Chris is saying, I want to believe that, but how does a mental conversation fix a physical symptom that's been going on for 18 months? Larry, you know I love this question because I'm coming from the physical world. I want to hear your take on it though. How
Yeah,
does
I'll
fixing
give a short answer, and then you can probably give a better, a deeper answer than me. But the short answer is, uh, what does your immune system do? Your immune system fights threats, right? Threats within the body. what does your nervous system do? Your nervous system senses what's going on internal and external. Why do we have a nervous system? Primarily, at least from evolution's sake, to identify threats, right? So the nervous system and the immune system are very intimately tied. The higher the nervous system is tuned, meaning the more the nervous system is under the experience of threat, the more that the immune system is going to be needed as a cave person, right? Like if my nervous system is tweaked, that means there's a tiger. If there's a tiger, it means I'm probably cut. If I'm cut, my immune system needs to protect against that. And so there's a direct tie between our immune system and our nervous system. When your nervous system is in chronic adrenal response, meaning it's always under threat, that means your immune system is always overworking, which creates an autoimmune response, right? Where your immune system starts to attack the body. And so what she was experiencing was a nervous system in chronic state of overuse, which then created an immune system that's saying we must need to be online, which eventually made her immune system attack her own body. As soon as the immune system turns off that threat, it allows both, not the immune system, the nervous system, to turn off the threat. The nervous system relaxes, the immune system relaxes, stops attacking the body. And so that's how, I mean, it's just, to me, it isn't, I can't believe that happened. It's just mechanical, right? Like that is a pure mechanical response.
Yeah, I could add a million things, but nothing that you didn't touch. I just want to go nerd out and tell everyone like at the cellular level what's happening, but it can all, I think there's a, for a good reason, I think this is like a net positive in the world. There is a big movement around the phrase stress can literally kill you. And, you know, for a long time it was smoking, and then it was sitting is the new smoking, and now we're all realizing with gut health studies and things like that, and holistic health and quote unquote functional health becoming more mainstream, people are realizing, yes, smoking is bad, sitting is horrible for your physical body, but stress will literally kill you. And that interconnectedness between your nervous system and your immune system, as you just like very, very eloquently just explained, is the reason why all these social media influencers are saying that, right? They never explain it. They're just like, oh, don't be stressed, like cortisol levels. And everyone online all of a sudden is a doctor because they know the word cortisol and adrenal glands. But what's actually happening? It's the immune response, just like you're saying. If your immune
So,
system's shot, your health is shot.
so like you recognize the ice cream thing. I recognize that everything that starts with S is bad. So we've got smoking is bad, sitting is bad, stress is bad, social media is bad. Uh, what doesn't start with S is ice cream. So I think Hunter's onto something.
Heck yeah. Tell Hunter I'm on my way. That's great. Let's I think we're running short on time. Let's wrap with this one because I know you have a strong opinion on this. And this was something that when you and I met several years ago, this concept is one of the first concepts that made me like do a double take and ask you to repeat it to me again. So here's the question. This is from a guy named David. He said, Jessica is $1 million business owner with an eighth grade education, but fighting through everything. 100 no's, financial holes, zero advantages. Now you're telling her fight is the problem. Without it, she'd still have nothing. Why would you disarm somebody's greatest weapon?
Yeah. So, oh, I can't be mean to people.
No, you can. You can.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said that so quickly. No, you shouldn't be mean, but also go ahead. David can handle it.
David is not listening. So, go, David. Your assignment is to go back and listen to the episode again, and/or I guess I wasn't clear enough in that. Uh, the fight is an absolutely wonderful tool, and we both said this, but it's a limiting tool.
Mm.
So she got to $1 million business, and that she can't get past it with fight. That's the thing. On top of that, like she got to a certain type of relationship she could be in, and nothing better than that. She got to a certain amount of money in her bank account, nothing better than that. She got to a certain amount of wealth in her life, and nothing better than that. Now, for most people, if they would have looked at Jess's relationships, her family relationships, her business, her wealth, her bank account, most people would say, "I'll take that. Yeah, that's a win." What we find is Fight got to that, and nothing she did for years could make for better relationships, more money, more wealth, a better business. And so the very thing, Fight, that got her out of the hole and got her to what most people would say, I'll take that as my final win, is the exact thing that kept her from going past that. And so that's where, if you go again, listen to the episode, by letting go of the Fight over the last couple of years, her business went from 1 million to 2. Uh, the amount of work, that was one of the things she said, the amount of work she's doing in the business went down by 50%. Her real estate holdings tripled, right? So within this place of saying, is the situation she found herself in Fight good enough? It was good enough for her. Her experience of life sucked.
Hmm.
Now, by giving up Fight, not only is her experience of life much better, but every measurable area of your life is better as well, because the very thing that was keeping her from that next level, the growth, the fulfillment, was the very thing that got her there in the first place. That's why it's so hard. And that's where we've talked through that narrative many times of superpower kryptonite, right? The same thing that produces our superpower produces our kryptonite, our greatest weakness. And so that was the same. I'll tie this back to the first question. She still has the fire that came from the Fight, but by dropping the or else behind it, she gets to live in the experience of presence, which is actually the greatest gift she could have.
I like that you almost tied all three questions into
Yeah,
that final
on purpose.
statement.
That was not by accident.
Of course not. I'm gonna go rogue for a second then again. So you're saying the Fight got her to 1 million and then dropping it bounced her and allowed her to get to 2. Say somebody's listening to this, and this could be David who submitted the question. He's at a, I'm just gonna like, I'm not even saying David's a
Make it
business
up. Right?
owner. Yeah, let's just say he's at 100,000, right? And I think my question to you, Larry, on behalf of the audience would be, is it worth keeping the Fight to go from 100,000 to 1 million and then saying like, oh, when I get there, I'll drop the Fight? Or is there another way to get to 1 million?
Well, if you want your experience of life to be miserable along the way, go ahead. So yes, you can. It might be faster. I can't guarantee that it'll be faster to keep the Fight, but I can guarantee your life's gonna suck. And so, and you're going to, the likelihood of you recognizing when Fight starts to be kryptonite, right, is zero, because Fight has given you gifts from 100 to 1 million, right?
Hmm.
100,000 to 1 million. And so you will be stuck like Jess was for a while before, if you ever get out of it, right? Before you identify and get out of it, or if you don't. Whereas, and this is the crazy part, you picked 100,000, you didn't pick 30, right? You picked 100,000. There's a chance, again, quote unquote Dave we're talking about, right? Not necessarily the real Dave, but the quote unquote Dave that's at 100,000, if he was to experience peace on a daily basis, complete fulfillment in every moment of his life, and absolute connection with those that he loves, does he need to make more than 100,000? The answer is no. So by giving up Fight, or what we're really saying is by giving up your trauma strategies, even before you've quote unquote made it, you might not need to go anywhere, right? You might get everything you want. And what's funny is, I guarantee the person, like we're saying, quote unquote, Dave is at 100 grand, who gets fulfillment, safety, peace, connection, right? Today, because he lets go of his traumas, he gets out of his lowercase t truths, right? That person, when they now live in complete satisfaction and gratitude for 1 million, guess what's going to happen next year? Or 100,000, they're going to be at 200, right? And so
Hmm.
that's where I say, no, it's not, let me hold on to my traumas to get to the next level. As soon as you let go of your traumas, you're going to be able to experience peace, joy, love, connection today. And I would not be surprised if you make more when it comes to the value, the accomplishments in life that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was seeing if you were going to come back to that because what I was hearing you say, and I think what the listeners would hear is like, okay, great, living in love, joy, peace, and fulfillment is, I might be happy at at 100,000 or 1,000, but how do I get to 1 million without the fight? And I think you wrapped it up perfectly at the end, which was not only might you not feel the need to get to 1 million anymore, the odds are when you live in peace, joy, and fulfillment and you're coordinating action with other people, the odds of you doubling, tripling, eventually getting to 1 million are just as high, if not higher. And your experience of life is that much better along the way.
But most likely unnecessary.
Yep.
Because why do you want 1 million for peace, love, connection?
Hmm.
Right? So if you have it today, why don't you don't need it anymore, right? And that's where again then the or else falls off. Well, what happens if I don't make 200,000 next year, or is the or else, right? Because I won't be happy, I won't be in peace, I won't be in connection, I won't be in safety. So I better do this or else. But as soon
Yep.
as you no longer have to do it, and that's that same the triangle we talked about of control, fear, and fight, right? Like as soon as you let go of the fight, there's no need to control. Fear goes away. As soon as you let go of the fear, you don't have to control anything. There is no fight. As soon as you let go of the illusion that you can control anything, then you can't be scared and there is no fight, right? So it's the same release for
Yep.
freedom.
Yep. I'm gonna end with this in honor of you, actually. I know you were just down in Mexico not too long ago. What we're talking about here reminds me of a parable that I recently heard for the first time. You may have heard it before, Larry. It was talking about a Mexican fisherman, and some big tycoon from New York City was down in Mexico. He meets a fisherman and he says, "Oh, what do you do for work?" And he goes, I fish in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I spend time with my wife. I pick my kids up from school and I spend time with my grandkids." And he's like, "How much fish do you catch?" And then the fisherman says, "Two fish," or something like that. And the tycoon goes, "Well, I can help you. Why don't you catch four fish?" He's like, "I can, but I don't need to." And he's like, "Well, what if you caught eight fish and then you turn that into 16 fish and then you eventually scale the company?" And he walked him through all these steps of like, and then you can buy a boat and then you can charter multiple boats and then you can build this billion-dollar fishing company. And the Mexican fisherman listened to him for a long time and he was like, okay, he let him get all the way to the end. And the tycoon was like, and then you would have this billion-dollar empire. And then the Mexican fisherman says, then what? It's like, then you could retire. And he goes, okay, and then what do I do when I retire? He goes, well, you go spend time on your private island and catch fish and come home at noon and spend time with your kids and then see your grandkids in the evening. And the Mexican fisherman was like, well, shit, I have that now. Why would I spend the next 30 years building an empire to give me the thing I have right now? And
Yeah,
it's so beautifully, if you look up, if you Google, if you're listening, if you Google the Mexican fisherman parable, I think it's exactly what we're talking about here, which I think is so interesting because it's universal. It's a universal truth.
definitely. All he
You
needs is
know,
some ice cream. He'll be good.
just not fish and ice cream together. I don't
Yeah.
want that.
Fish flavored ice cream. No.
Larry, thank you so much, man. It was a pleasure. I love listening to your episodes and then getting to pick your brain with these listener questions afterwards is it's one of my favorite things. So, always good to see you. I'm sure I'll see you tomorrow. But good to see you in this
Yeah,
format. I hope
my
the
pleasure.
listeners are enjoying.
Thank you for the help with all the questions. And like we said at the beginning, this is this is the most one of the most fun things that Steve and I get to do is answer your questions because we're not just putting content out there. We're literally answering the needs that you all have. And the best way to do that is to go to the podcast website at truepathmastery.com/podcast, or you can just send us a direct message at podcast, or is it podcast? I can't remember. We'll put it down below. Podcast or podcasts. I think it's podcast at
Yeah.
truepathmastery.com. So within that, send us an email, go to the website, and send us some questions. And I was going to say I will attempt to be nice to you, but I'm just going to answer your question. Thank you for joining another episode of Capital T Truth. Go to truepathmastery.com and you'll see a podcast link there. Within that, you can subscribe to all our channels, get notified when our new episodes are coming out, as well as be able to reach us to send us questions. You can send that to podcast@truepathmastery.com. And if you send us that email or submit it through the website, we'll be able to get your question answered live on